Now, back live with Jones and Credlin.
Well, thank you for joining Peter and me tonight. Look, everything it seems is about coronavirus. It is true that no part of our economy is unaffected, but tonight, Peter and I are going to look at a forgotten industry, the arts. This is a sector worth more than $110 billion. It has been decimated. Michael Cassel is one of Australia's most successful theatrical producers. As a precocious teenager, he wrote and asked me to open a Christmas spectacular of his. I think it was at Kiama. His letter didn't tell me anything about himself. I wrote back and said, well, I won't say no, but who are you? He wrote a polite note back to tell me he was a schoolboy. And I thought, well, look, you've got to help young people having a go, so off I went. If memory serves me correctly, it was at the Kiama showground, but it might have been Wollongong. It was a long while ago. When I arrived, there was everything Christmas you could ever see. Marquees, balloons, ribbons, tents, more than one Santa Claus. It was an absolute spectacle. And this young bloke approached me and introduced himself. I didn't know who he was, but he was the man, Michael, and he thanked me for coming, at which point I said, well, who did all of this? He said, I did. I said, no, hang on. I mean, all of this here that's around me. And it was then I realised he was the architect. It was amazing. He knew I was then managed by the late Harry M. Miller, and he asked me if I could get him some work experience, to which I replied, Michael, no trouble, so long as you don't expect Harry to pay. Well, the work experience came and went, and he asked me if I could get him a job with Harry Miller, arguably the greatest theatrical entrepreneur we've seen. Knowing Harry didn't like paying people much. I said to Michael, well, now listen, if you're happy to be poorly paid, I can get you a job. And so it all began. And here he is. His productions include The Lion King, Harry Potter and the Cursed Child, and coming to Sydney in March next year, Hamilton. He's also done the opening ceremony of the Women's T20 Cricket World Cup, shows with Tina Arena, the Royal Edinburgh Military Tattoo, Priscilla, Queen of the Desert, Beautiful, the Carole King musical, Les Mis, Kinky Boots, Singing in the Rain. On Broadway and the West End, he's been responsible for productions including The Prince of Egypt, Pretty Woman the Musical and The Cher Show. And if things hadn't turned out as they have, he would have had a production of The Lion King in Wuhan in January and the show going to Beijing in May. In other words, he knows what he's on about. He's only in his mid-30s. He also knows, though, and this is the point, how badly the industry is hurting in the midst of the coronavirus outbreak. And he also has first-hand knowledge of the impact of the virus. He's only recently recovered from contracting it last month. I thought we'd have a yarn with him tonight, and he joins us from our Sydney CBD studio. Michael, all those years ago. You've big time now. You've
much easier those times.
You've left us all behind. Look, firstly, how's the health?
Well, I'm feeling much better, thank you. Yes, I've been out and about for just over a week now and feeling good, which I'm very happy to say.
We'll talk about the industry in a moment. Let's start with your own experience, though. Amongst the performers you've brought here recently was the American actress Rita Wilson. Now, both she and her husband, Tom Hanks, contracted the virus. When did you first start to feel unwell, and what were the initial symptoms?
Yeah, look, we'd presented the concert, and a couple of days later, about 4 days later, I had woken up just with a cough, and I thought, oh, that's funny, I've got a cough, but I did not think anything of it. But it was the following day when we had heard about the Rita and Tom testing positive that we thought we better take it seriously, and so immediately went off to go and get tested because we'd spent quite a bit of time with them over the weekend. And my colleagues and I all went into isolation. We closed down our office, and 24 hours later I got the call from New South Wales Health to say that I had tested positive. So I was quarantined at home in my bedroom and proceeded to spend the next 19 days there.
How long after the test did you know? Sorry, Peter, how long after the test did you know? And, you know, I understand that the whole staff was tested, everyone went into isolation, and you and another staff returned positive results. But how did the virus progress in your body?
Yeah, look, initially, as I said, it was just the cough, but over sort of the course of the next 4 days, I started sort of experiencing all of the symptoms that have been reported. I had aches and pains, I had a runny nose, a bit of a fever, but what hit me the most over the period was the fatigue. I could not lift my head off the pillow. So I was finding I'd wake up in the morning and keep the business going and then crash out for the rest of the day, and that really took it out of me.
Yeah, so clearly it's much worse than a normal flu that you might have had in the past, Michael.
Yeah, look, certainly. I mean, I've never sort of been off work for an extended period of time. Tend to sort of work through the flu and colds and so forth. But yeah, this just for me, it took my energy away and kind of really made me lethargic.
And just tell us about isolation. What was life in isolation like?
Well, let me tell you, I never thought I could spend so much time in one room. My children thought it was hysterical that Dad was locked up and they couldn't see him for so long. But look, boring. I mean, thankfully, I slept through the majority of it. But personally, I couldn't wait to get out of there. We were very careful, my wife and 2 children at home, to make sure that we were separated. So there was no interaction. We were FaceTiming to speak to one another. Thankfully, because of the time that we'd spent together, my wife and my children were asked to be tested, and they tested negative. So it was really important to me that we keep that distance.
Michael, Michael, just to the arts. I mean, we all go to the pictures, we go to the theatre, and someone gives you your ticket. There's someone there selling you some drinks. There are people on the stage. There are people backstage. If it's the opera, there's the orchestra. There's someone who's taken out a mortgage to be able to pay for the violin. This is a sector of $110 billion. How are these people managing?
Look, it's extremely difficult. I think, the industry was, put out of work overnight, essentially, when these restrictions on the mass gatherings were implemented, and, understandably so at the time. But, for us, for many organisations, opera companies, independent theatre companies, cabaret venues, everybody was put out of work overnight. A lot of shows on that Sunday ahead of the restrictions being implemented on the Monday closed immediately. So these were actors, musicians, front of house staff, hospitality staff, ticketing staff, who were all immediately out of work, and many of those contracts cut short. From our perspective, really fortunate. We're in a unique position in Australia that a show like Harry Potter and the Cursed Child, we're endeavouring to keep that company together because we've made a long-term commitment to be here. But for most shows, if we were presenting Kinky Boots or A Beautiful here, we wouldn't have the luxury of being able to keep people together. And what it means is that the industry at large has been decimated, and what a lot of those working in the industry now are trying to find a way to look after our staff, look after the employees have been put out of work. I think the challenge is in the live entertainment space. A lot of people are casual staff. They're contractors.
Peter.
Michael, I know your name, but I didn't know that story that Alan told us at the top of the show. Just such an extraordinary sort of entrepreneurial history for you, and you're bloody young, I have to say, to have done all of that in your life, so your future's very, very bright. One of the issues, obviously, for your industry is it's a bit hand to mouth in terms of, you've got one production, you're putting together the next one, you get one over the line, you then move on to the next one, and I think that's where a lot of the back of house people and the orchestra pit and, actors, etc. And when it's all shut down, weddings, events, live gigs, everything's shut down, we don't know how long this is going to be, so how do you plan? You can't even say when your next production can get off the ground. I mean, how do you deal with this uncertainty in a business sense?
Well, I think that's a big challenge that a lot of us are grappling with, and I think, producers, promoters here in Australia, indeed the world over, we can't just go and flick a switch and turn these shows on. They tend to take between 12 and 18 months of planning. So the lag time between, once we're able to kind of resume business and be able to create these new shows is going to be a challenge. There are some productions indeed coming to Australia that hopefully will be able to, proceed. Certainly we're charging forth with Hamilton, which will open in March next year, and in the process of making offers to cast and crew, which is a great privilege to be doing in the current climate. But it does mean that we will see an impact, I think, certainly here in Australia and indeed around the world, for live entertainment, because we're not going to have the benefit of being able to put these shows together in the current time that we are experiencing.
Michael, I made this point before, but I just say this for the benefit of people at home. When someone auditions, say, for a role in the orchestra, they have to have good equipment, just like a tennis player's got to have a good racket, a cricketer has a good bat. And so a violin, I mean, you've got young people who take out a mortgage on their future and they buy the violin. Now, people might know it, but you can't get much of a good quality of $150,000. They're stuck now with payments to be made on their violin. the best they can hope for is $550 a week. I could ask a dumb question. How on earth do they manage?
Well, honestly, I think the answer is they are struggling, Alan. These artists who have invested a great deal in their skills and in their training and their development, now struggling to find out how to, pay for the mortgage, pay for the rent. The next contract, who knows when that will arrive. And so that's why the industry here in Australia is really banding together and championing to make sure that everybody who contributes to this industry is going to be looked after. And great announcement with the JobKeeper, and some organisations who have long tenure will be able to benefit from that with their employees, and that's wonderful. But as I was saying, because there are so many casuals in the workforce and contractors, and many of these contracts for theatre, for dance, for opera are quite short term. They don't have the benefit of running a year plus. They're the employees who are going to be challenged in seeking the JobKeeper under the JobKeeper program, and be able to maintain their livelihoods.
I know whole careers. I mean, people in the industry here may have got the elusive job on Broadway and the West End, and that's what they've yearned for all their lives, and Broadway and the West End are closed down. Paul Fletcher is the minister in charge. I know that, he's a very consultative person, and he's working very hard. Are you getting any satisfaction there? Yeah,
look, Paul has been, spending a great deal of time with Live Performance Australia, the industry body that represents employers, and the Union Media Entertainment Arts Alliance, and really, listening to what the industry needs to support and maintain our staff. And I really hope that comes to bear some fruit and really deliver for those who make our shows and our industry work.
Good on you, Michael. Listen, good. Sorry, Peter.
I was just going to say, I tell you what, when we all get out of this induced isolation, and I think we've all learnt to do things and read books and listen to music, all the stuff we probably haven't been doing in our busy lives. I hope we all get out to the theatre, because I think that's the best way you guys get back on your feet as quickly as possible. So please have plenty of shows there for us, Michael.
No, I will, Peter. I wrote to our cast and crew today on Harry Potter, all at home, waiting for the lights to be turned back on. And I said, when things do resume, we have a great responsibility to welcome audiences in. I think people are going to want to embrace being together, having these experiences, and I hope that time is soon. And,
well, before you go, just solve one question for me. Was it the Kiama Showground or the Wollongong Showground?
It was the Kiama Showground.
You've come a long way, Michael. You've come a long way. Thanks for coming and joining us tonight, and good luck with your health and with all those entrepreneurial endeavours that you've undertaken. You're a most impressive success story. There he is, Michael Cassel. We'll take a break and we'll be back to wrap up